This is the first time we've had a guest that neither Lauren or I had ever met before.
Mm-hmm. Well, welcome. Yes, it's nice to finally virtually meet you both.
Yeah, you too.
This is Subject to Change, a sustainability podcast.
I always thought that art was my calling ever since I was little.
We're speaking with Jade Warrick, artist.
I kind of started off dabbling in comic design. I did a lot of comics back in the day. So I grew up, my parents who own Black Kettle Soap Company. I grew up with my parents and my 7 siblings. And back in the day, we didn't have the most money. So we had to be very creative with how we entertained ourselves. I made our own comic books where we had a whole line of characters and superheroes. And then I made fake Monopoly games. And I was like, well, they love it, so why not keep at it? And then here I am.
Who is the favorite character that you developed as a kid?
Say that I think his name was Detective Toby. He was this New Yorker, very stereotypical New Yorker detective who was kind of lonely. He's kind of like, he's like, oh man, I just want to find a wife, but I'm also going to solve crimes. And it kind of dealt with like the fun part of like solving crimes and like going through this whole trial. But also I kind of, as like a 9-year-old, I guess I put in like, like love and relationships and like how it is to kind of be introverted and that not be accepted in the world. Yes, and I turned my friends into fish. I like that one. A lot of people like that one. I was impressed. I was like, wow, I didn't know if I could make their beards and like, how do you put a beard on a fish? But I found out, so it ended up being pretty great.
Creativity has risks.
I know when I was younger, there's a big stigma that if you can't be an artist, it was on all the TV shows, it was reflected in all the media, it's like, oh, you're an artist and you're a loser stoner and you just want to sit on your mom's couch, like that kind of vibe I grew up with. So I was very glad that I took the risk. Yeah, I've been told pretty much the majority of my life that my art was never going to get anywhere. It was weird. People didn't understand it, but now with social media and more access to seeing other types of artists, I think it's just more accepted. Like,
paint some flowers.
So I have a 2-part question. Well, actually, it's just 2 questions, but I want to ask them both. So my first question is, was it because of your parents' entrepreneurial spirit that maybe you felt like it wasn't such a big risk for you, or it wasn't something that was maybe so avant-garde? Because like you had seen them kind of take risks probably growing up, right?
Kind of. I'm not going to lie. My parents kind of trashed me too on this. They didn't think I was going to make it either. So no offense to those two. I love them very, very much, but they were also some of the skeptical parents that were like, you gotta be able to do something, make stuff pretty, paint some flowers.
Spread art. Validate through art.
I can take a lot of risk without it really impacting me as an artist because I'm not making, like, I do make money off of it, but my whole goal is to not profit. My whole goal is to spread art, validate through art, and just do what I love.
So to that point, so spreading art, and Jody saying that, she's walked past your murals. I was marveling at the size of these murals on your Instagram. And I don't know how do you even start? I would be like, it's such a blank canvas. How do you get the idea? Like, talk about the risk. I wouldn't know where to start.
I know, it's crazy, especially the Broadway one. The Troy one's pretty tall too. It's about 13 feet high, but the Broadway one's, I think, 60 feet. So it's like, it was incredibly huge. Scaling it, honestly, I would have to throw Tony Idesico out there. He's been a mentor of mine, whether he knows it or not, and he is a good friend of mine. And he is basically, I don't want to say cheerleader, but he's somebody who's always there to support me. He's always there to support me as an artist and to kind of strip away the fear. And he's the one who kind of led me with this process. And then, after the Broadway mural, I think everything's going to be easier after that. I usually have a lot of these mural ideas already at the back of my mind. I have a huge digital sketchbook. And what I do is I usually go in there and I find the elements that I want. So with this one, I went into my little digital sketchbook. I knew that I wanted it to be a woman of color, and I knew that I wanted it to be in nature. So I just went in my little sketchbook, picked the little elements and pieces that I wanted, collaged it together, then drew it, and then presented it to Tony, and we made the Albany Center Gallery, which is part of who runs the Capitol walls, and kind of just tweaked it from there. So it was a long process, and it's more of like putting together puzzle pieces for my mind.
All right, there's the mechanical and process side of it. So which digital sketch, do you use an app or do you free sketch?
I free sketch, and then I use Photoshop.
Then there's the process of taking your sketch and just the mechanical transition. Did you block it and brought the blocks up high onto the wall?
I didn't want to take any risk with the perspective being so like with being off. It was a mixture of gridding and projecting. So what we did is we got a really high quality projector, like $1,000 projector. We borrowed from another artist who was gracious enough to let me borrow it. Cool. Set it up at night. Spent 3 nights just going up and up and up and up and kind of using a ginormous thick black marker and just marking off, like, we know her knees here, we know this is there, we know this is there. Got a very, very, very rough shape figure kind of going. And then after that, kind of gridded it. And then, use
nice.
The piece of paper, to match up which square goes where.
The texture of the experience.
That's great. And the texture, you've got these twirls in some of the work that it's just like that's the other thing, Lauren, when you come to Albany, we're going to walk down there. It's a great walk from my house. And you just, you can see the first time you walk by it, you're just going to see that beautiful image of woman and nature and confidence. And it's really cool. And then when you look closer, you can see all the variety and the paint colors and the depth of the work, which is awesome.
Texture is definitely something I like to add into all my works.
Let's talk about some reactions to art.
Interesting story about my first exposure to that mural was an interaction on Facebook, which surprised me. It seemed that the person posting this thing on Facebook was disappointed that a person of color was depicted in this mural. And it was kind of, it took me aback. And luckily that Facebook group, like everyone pretty quickly jumped in and said, what the hell are you talking about? And I want to know how you feel about that. You were aware of that, and what's your take?
First, it was like, oh, I don't want to stare at this from my window. And I was like, well, it's only like day 3. I still have like 10, 11 more days to go in this piece. Then when the piece was half done, she buckled down and being like, I don't like its thighs. I don't like this color of its skin. And she said, I think the comment that got me the most was, of course, being biracial and everything. The comment that got me the most was that she said, well, I have a Black daughter, so I'm not being racist about this. I just don't like what it's representing. And I was just like, well, I have the beholder. As an artist, you really do get used to some people, being disappointed in your art and some people not vibing with it. And then you get people who absolutely love it. And I honestly have never thought any piece of art is really, quote unquote, ugly or anything like that, because art to me is subjective. You can't really measure it in that way. It's really the experience and the story that, you get out of it. And every person's gonna have a different story.
265 days.
It was October when that was happening. A lot of stuff with the election, the political climate. I'm very patient with folks now. I'm very, very patient because I'm like, you really never know what somebody's going. And we've all been going through so much. I mean, I even haven't really been myself the past 265 days, because the first 100 days were okay. But so I try to have more, patience and understanding.
Actually, I saw that on some of the posts that you put on Instagram that you were struggling with COVID and the restrictions and especially I would think being an artist whose impact in the community is growing and having maybe a restriction to some of that ability to impact. Wow.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, it hurt a lot. Well, first of all, I'm just a travel junkie in general. I love traveling. I love experiencing new places, cultures, all that type of stuff. I'm very big into going in and exploring and just traveling. So when that got cut down, I was like, ooh, okay, I can handle this one because this is a privilege anyway. I can handle this. I only had it for two years anyway, because, you know, I just started to get a kick in my career. So I could handle that for a little bit. Then it became not having access to friends. And then it became not having access to family. And then it became not having access to my grandmother. And then it became losing gigs because everything's shutting down and magazines are shutting down and creative industries are shutting down.
Yeah.
And then, you know, yeah, then it became, oh, well, now I'm inside and can't go anywhere or do anything or hang out with anyone. Not being able to be artistic because you're so stressed out. Oh,
you had talked previously about amplified voices, which I want to hear a little bit about, but in one of your posts, I did see somebody wearing a mask while maybe doing something. And so I'm hopeful that program is able to run. Can you talk to us a bit about that program?
So Amplified Voices is a program that I started because I was annoyed with how folks were handling the Black Lives Matter protest. There was this trend of white businesses going and having white artists paint on those boards that they put up on the windows. And it wasn't helping anyone. It was actually causing more trauma, I think, to folks than helping, because then you see the whitewashing, the art washing, the rainbows and daisies on there saying, it's going to be okay, BLM. And I was like, no, it's not going to be okay. This isn't helping anyone. In fact, it's making us all angrier, you know? So I was like, screw this. Called up Tony, I think at 8 o'clock in the morning, because when I have an idea in my head, I just want to get it going. I don't like to just mull over things and think about it. So I just called Tony from Albany Center Gallery. I was like, I'm upset. Here's why I'm upset. I want to do a program that can help, that can do the same thing that we see out here, but use it to validate and uplift Black voices, Black and Brown Indigenous voices, while providing them with mentorship opportunities and being able to express themselves through art. One of my main goals is to not really turn neighborhoods into a coloring book and really, really do not apply art washing and gentrification. I think the way to be able to avoid that is to put the art in the hands of the community and only bring in that piece of the community to do the art. So whenever I do Amplified Voices, I usually hire what I call assisting mentors, because me and Eugene would be the lead mentors, and then we have assisting mentors from the area who can help, you know, teach the kids, learn mentorship opportunities, and, you know, just volunteer. A lot of folks just love volunteering for this kind of stuff. And then we work with a local community, youth community program who would help us, you know, find children or youth who would be interested in doing this type of program. A sustainable kind of open source kind of curriculum that, like, I make sure that it's just on track and it's still following the goals and the mission, but really giving the power over, you know, to the community.
It has to be of the community.
The idea that something is connected to the spirit of the locality and the resources of that local community, that's an incredibly powerful aspect. Whether you're white or a person of color, if you're coming into a community and telling somebody what to do, you're coming in as the hero who's thinking that you're saving someone else. That's not the point.
It has to be intentional.
I try to be extremely intentional about how I do this, because I do not want to go into areas that may already have trauma based off of just systematic prejudice and, you know, all that, and go in there and then, you know, cause a jarring effect. So, like, just we go in there and teach kids how to, you know, to paint. We have 3 days of validation and meditation. We put art into these first 3 days of lessons, like balance and, you know, how to storyboard. And, you know, we use the Lion King to teach people how to storyboard and stuff like that. But at the same time, we're also talking about, you know, police brutality, systematic oppression. How does that affect you? Sustainability within your neighborhood, culture, equality. Issues that face Black, Brown, Indigenous folks today in a accessible manner, and in a manner that still makes them feel validated, and in a manner where they could, you know, dive within their artistic abilities.
What are some of the reactions that you've gotten from the program, either from participants or people associated with the program?
Madison and South Pearl, Albany, New York.
For the first one, absolutely amazing. The kids loved it because that's a busy street. It used to just be a McDonald's, I believe, and a lot of the neighborhood hated it. They thought it was an eyesore. Like, it's nice to have it in such a space where these kids can go and see it pretty much every day. And we had amazing response from the neighborhood. I think a lot of the folks who are around there who we spoke to said that, it's nice to see the McDonald's not be an eyesore, and it's nice to see, the youth that they know, whether it's like related or, a friend of the parents, they just love seeing the positivity.
And North Swan and Third in Albany.
Then the other one, you could tell when we were talking with the kids, they were more upset about their neighborhood not being as safe as it could be. They didn't like the over excessive police presence, access to nature, and they wanted to maybe learn more about, I don't know, not quite meditation, even though that's how it's drawn on there, but more so a space to be able to relax. So one half of it showing like all the things they love, like it's like a little boy doing yoga, a girl playing basketball, it has the giant eagle with the neighborhood name and all of that. And then on the other side, which caused a lot of controversy, was it's a cop yelling at it's a cop face, yelling, a bunch of like wires, because they wanted it like the wires to kind of connect and like kind of like deplug or something like that as their concept. And they like made the basketball chained to the dumpster. They didn't like that. They were afraid, they were a little bit shook about COVID. So they drew some COVID like germs on there. So it's just like, what they drew, like what we want to get rid of, and this darkness we want to get rid of, and then we want to just focus purely on this positivity. I think they tried to get us to take it down. Luckily I stuck to my guns, and well, I'm not a bootlicker anyway, so I would have said no anyway. I would have just put a plaque up there saying what the meaning is. I mean, that's what they see. Maybe instead of telling them to not paint it, maybe we should, I don't know, focus on why they feel this way.
Not like the reflection that they say or see in the proverbial mirror, right?
Yeah.
And that's really what it kind of sounds like. If this is the overarching kind of vision that the kids have and see, well,
what's next and what's now?
Well, right now we are actually working on getting it. I didn't know that it was gonna be so successful and beloved. So actually right now I'm working with my partners. I have Jammella Anderson is a new partner, a part of Amplified Voices. I have Albany Center Gallery with Tony Idesico. I have Kristen with the Barn, the Albany Barn, and then I have Baldwin with Youth FX, which are my permanent partners for this program. So we're going to be working on sponsoring, partnership paperwork, grant, all that stuff that we need to be official will be coming down the line, website, and all that good stuff.
It's such a positive outlet too. I mean, if only all kids could have, continued access and see the kind of change, like it's literal, something that they can see the change and drive past and walk past in a huge scale every day. I mean, it's exceptional.
Are doing our next Amplified Voices in June or July. We are working with Honest Weight, and we're going to be doing a mural there.
Access to art and explorations.
My whole goal is like to put into the world what I didn't have as a kid, but what I wanted as a kid. Really, 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 really wish there were more, not only art programs, but just more programs to learn about things in general.
But that makes me do a self-reflection, and I'm going to turn it on Lauren and then on me. If you were going to put something into the universe that you didn't have when you were a kid, that you would have benefited from, what would it be?
Unlearning and Discovery.
For me, I wish that there was a little bit more honesty. I wish that there was a little bit more, less of a tick mark of what we're supposed to follow, a little less like go to college, do this, do that. And actually Jade said something earlier about the way we're taught to maybe behave.
Free-form community.
I biked around my neighborhood when I was a kid and knew the neighbors because of biking. And then there was a whole phase of time where we stopped doing that. Like nobody went and got lost in their neighborhood on a bike for 5 or 6 hours, like exploring the neighborhood and discovering things like murals that I never thought I'd see. And you can't do that stuff if you're not exploring and walking and being out physically in nature.
That's why I love nature. That's why even with the program, we really do build in 30 minutes of meditation and moving your body and mindfulness a day. That's like mandatory.
What's with the duck?
I was asked by the Troy Farmers Market to come paint a Troy story. I was like, well, this is a Troy story to me. Yeah, Jamel Mosley is a local creative, marketer, entrepreneur. He co-founded Rooted with Shell, and he has his own, media business. Is honestly a jack of all trades. I look up to him. He's a really cool guy. And he had this story where it was on his live feed, and he was just out, just I think grabbing a coffee or going around the block for real quick, and he found this ginormous white duck, and this white duck was you could tell it was scared. I've owned ducks before, so you could tell it was scared, and you could tell that it wasn't a wild duck. It was somebody's pet. Let him pick it up and just hold it. So the adorable part about this was not only that he found this duck and stayed with it for, I think, 5 hours until it found a rescuer, but it was the community and the neighborhood's interaction with him, just on the corner with this duck. He's ran into this older woman who was talking about her duck recipes with him. He ran into he ran into this couple. It was just so interesting to see all these people who probably would have never ever talked to each other just, stop to talk and bond over this lost little duck.
I love the attitude. There's it's like a moment of resistance between him and the duck, almost a face off. You can when I look at that mural, I feel that moment. He's like, well, damn, I have to make a decision here. You can feel that.
Yeah, pretty much. That's pretty much what it was.
And I love that. I love knowing the story that he ended up meeting people and talking with people because of this duck. So I'm gonna go rent a duck and just walk around town,
stand on the corner,
see what happens. I'm laughing at the idea of walking around with a duck. Okay, I raise monarch butterflies on our porch in the summer, and that's made me a couple of friends too. So I think that if you show your love of another creature, then other creatures are unafraid to come and talk to you.
Yeah.
Impact.
And how to change the way we think about programming. I've noticed that doing programming on a micro, smaller, intimate scale has a wider impact than ginormous programming on a wider scale. So I really am going to start putting my focus and doing the research and talking to people and being mentored by people who are already familiar with this about how we can, change how we look at programming and how we can change programming to be more impactful on the community. The students having some issues, I still want us to be there to be able to help and uplift. I want there to be more of that in programming.
Essence.
There's a study that in every square meter of soil, the square meter of soil next to it has a 30% difference in species. Oh. So we're talking about every community is going to be significantly different than the community a few blocks away. And we tend to do things like, we can get 80% of the way with 20% of this impact if we focus here. Let's water down this program so it's applicable across a broader. No.
Doesn't work like that. Does not work like that.
Doesn't work.
It works for the organization, but it doesn't work for the people. And if it does work for the people, it may work for only a small percentage.
Green schools.
If you're interested, you tell me. I'll send you some links about green schools, because I think that green schools would be a fantastic avenue to explore the programming. Now, this is a U.S. Green Building Council initiative. It's international. It's talking about how to create schools that support the health and well-being of the students. And I would suggest that a big part of that is encouraging the students to have a voice in their own surroundings through art.
Mm-hmm.
So
I would love to, I would love to just dive into all of this as much as I can. I haven't heard about green schools before, but I would just, based off of what you said and a little bit of this one paragraph off of Google that I'm reading, it sounds amazing.
so this is what these conversations are supposed to do. They're supposed to introduce us to new ideas and the people we're interviewing to new ideas. We just want to mix it up. We're so tired of talking to the same people we always talk to.
Let's talk about your heroes.
All right, so I'm going to drop three. I'm going to drop three local heroes that I think are beautiful, amazing people. I'm going to drop Danielle Collins. She's an amazing poet. She's an amazing educator, and she's an amazing person in general, amazing artist, so many things. So Danielle Collins is one. I look up to how she moves throughout the world and her intentions with everything. Second one would, of course, be Jammella Anderson. I absolutely look up to Jammella Anderson. I think she's a beautiful person. She's led the Albany Fridge Food Initiative, putting the free fridges out all throughout upstate. And I'm putting their Instagrams in there if you want to look at them.
Yep.
She's led those initiatives. She's done a lot for the community. She fights oppression and systematic racism built within our policies in our community. She's done a lot of amazing, boards. She just is out there just trying to help and do the same thing I'm trying to do. And it's just a city healer. And it's just such an amazing, beautiful human being in general. So she would also be one. And then, of course, I would have to say Eugene O'Neill. Eugene O'Neill is who works with me with Amplified Voices, and he is an amazing art partner. He keeps me going, keeps me uplifted. He keeps me not going insane. He's an amazing art partner to just run these programs with. He is just as passionate as I am, and it's very rare to meet somebody who's at the same passionate level as I am with this stuff, with education and art and education together. So we're just like, we just want to save the world through art and educate, people through art. So he is definitely another hero. All local, all amazing people. All I think everyone should know their names, and those would be the three.
Accountability.
Our final question, what is the biggest initiative right now? What do we all need to be stumping for? What do we all need to be focused on trying to resolve?
Ooh, that's a big one. 2020 brought a lot of issues. So accountability, we have this weird thing of not holding people accountable. Like, if you see even myself, I even told my partners with Amplified Voices, I was like, I respect you all so much that if you're feeling some type of way about anything I'm doing, talk to me about it. Nice. Hold me accountable about it. If I'm doing something that I don't even care if this is my program, because the kids always come first. Program and me second, kids first. The white-owned businesses, who will do things such as have Black and brown traditional food items or products and not really give space nor hire nor shout out nor support any of the cultures that are behind these traditional products, that they're making. I don't want to throw any names out, but there are several in Albany, so how do we hold these folks accountable, without canceling, right? So how do we change our perception of holding folks accountable? I do not know. I have not figured that out yet, but I want to. Of course, there are some people that definitely need to be canceled. Like there's a line and there's a spectrum, but at the same time, I just really want, there to be more accountability so we can grow.
Well, I think that you are demonstrating by way of, personal example, how to start to grow that accountability. You're working with groups, you're being very forthcoming and saying, hey, I'm second, like, let me know if there's something going on, like, let's talk about it, let's hash it out. And that has a ripple effect. I think that really starts to kind of permeate then all the people that you're working with, and then hopefully all the people that they work with. So it's a definite ripple. I think it's awesome.
I just want us all to grow and us all to be able to, be living our best life out here.
Living our best life. I'm liking that.
Yeah.
Left, right, and center.
Yes. You're right.
Thank you. Thank you for spending this time with us and for sharing your journey and your ideas and your art.
This has been Subject to Change. Thanks for joining us.
Perfect. All right, well, folks. Well, thank you, Jody. Thank you, Lauren. It was nice talking to you.
This has been Subject to Change. Thank you to Jade Warrick. Check out Amplified Voices and look for Trash Kid Art on Instagram.
Walk around your community and check out the art. I think that's key.
Definitely.
And bring your kids and start to talk to them about it in an honest way.
Sweet.